Hey guys, what's up? We're continuing on with the Best Picture Challenge. I am now about halfway through because this morning I saw Fences. Now I have to say, as I have been going through this challenge, it's been a little bit exhausting so far. You know, like when you see a really good movie and it kind of just like drains your emotions or like exhausts your emotions. When you're watching all these amazing movies one after another, it can be a lot. So this morning I saw Fences, and again, it was a lot, but it was amazing. So this film is about the trials and tribulations of an African-American family living in Pittsburgh in the 1950s. It was adapted from August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning play of the same title, which premiered in the 1980s. Now this is interesting because Wilson also wrote the screenplay for this film, but he died in 2005. Luckily, he did finish the screenplay before his death. It took a really long time for this film to actually happen and be made for a few reasons. First of all, Wilson preferred to have an African-American director make the film. Also, a lot of people get anxious when they think about bringing a stage production to the screen. It can be a rough transition sometimes. It doesn't always work. So people were a little bit worried about that. But then finally, Denzel Washington was like, I'm gonna direct it. This is Denzel's third film that he's directed. He also starred in the movie. He played Troy, and Viola Davis played his wife, Rose. And they were both reprising their Tony Award-winning roles from the 2010 revival. And guess what? They're still amazing in these roles. They were nominated for Oscars this year, and boy, were they stunning in this film. Especially Viola. Oh my god. More on that later. The supporting cast was also very strong. A lot of them were reprising their Broadway roles, and they all just brought a lot to the table. Okay, so this film was really driven by the characters because it is an adaptation of a play. You know, you have really deep, complex characters, especially Denzel's character, Troy. The range of emotions in some of these scenes was wild. 2 syllables, wild. You would start out with the characters just like laughing, having a good time, telling old stories, and then like there would be a little subtle change in the atmosphere and they start like yelling at each other and it would get really, really intense, and it was crazy. I mean, it got downright ugly like multiple times. It was I really do think that the actors played a huge part in the success of this film because I think the story kind of struggled a little bit to make the transition from stage to screen. First of all, the whole movie felt a little bit long. It was about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I hate being that person that's like, this movie was too long. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I love a long movie when it's warranted, but I just felt like this kind of dragged a little bit at times. The pacing was a bit of an issue. Some of the scenes, especially in the beginning, just felt a little bit dragged out. I mean, they were chock full of dialogue, and the dialogue at times was very, very beautiful, but it was just too much sometimes, and especially in the beginning, it was hard to keep up because I was trying to hear like every little thing that they were saying, and it was just like back and forth and back and forth. I think that's something that works really well on stage, but I think we needed a little bit more maybe to look at on screen. Another issue that I had, it felt a little bit trapped, which maybe is what they were going for, because I mean most of the scenes took place either in a few of the rooms in the house or out on the back porch and in the backyard. Now again, you know, this could be because it was a play and there's only so many sets when you're doing a play, but it didn't work quite as well for me on the screen. Overall though, I thought that this film was amazing. The performances by the actors, incredible. Definitely worth seeing. Not something that you could watch over and over again. It's kind of like Manchester by the Sea. You get all those emotions sucked out of you, and then it's like, wow, I need to just step away for a little bit and cry, and then I'll be alright. So now I want to talk about some specific scenes, some specific plot lines, things like that. So if you guys haven't seen the film yet and you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably pause this and come back. If not, here we go. As I mentioned earlier, the complexity of these characters is mind-blowing, so I want to talk about the evolution of Troy Maxson. I think his character really makes you question if you can call someone like a good person or a bad person. You know, it's not like black and white there. There is a lot of gray area, and this character really makes you explore that. When the film starts out, we think that Troy is just this really hardworking guy. He's driven by the responsibility of taking care of his family, and he's doing everything he can to keep his family afloat. You can tell, like, they don't have a lot of money. He's working hard, the daily grind. He's a garbage collector with his best friend, Mr. Now I can't remember if it's Bono or Bono. I don't get confused with Bono from YouTube. But anyway, his friend was played by Stephen Henderson, who also had a small role in Manchester by the Sea, and I think that he did a great job in this film. The best friends are really bringing it in these movies. They put up with a lot of shit from these main characters. We feel bad when we hear that Troy didn't make it into the major leagues for baseball, and he's saying that it was a race thing. But then, like, we hear him putting down players like Jackie Robinson and stuff, who, like, did so much to help other African-American athletes, and it's just like, wait a second. Like, what is going on here? He's very bitter about the whole situation, so we kind of don't know what to really make of it. Then his brother Gabe comes into the picture, and we find out that he was a soldier in World War II. He suffered from a brain injury, and now he is mentally impaired. And then a little bit later, we find out that Troy used his brother's money to buy a house for his family, and then his brother ended up moving out on his own. So there's a lot of mixed emotions there too. I think there's definitely some guilt. He's wondering, has he done enough to help his brother? He's feeling weird about living in that house because he used his brother's money to buy it. It's not a good feeling to have, and I think it was especially bad for Troy because he is all about responsibility and, like, earning what you deserve. We do see a lot of fight in this character. He ends up becoming the first African-American garbage truck driver in Pittsburgh, and we're all, like, excited for him, and then we find out he can't read, he can't even drive, like, he doesn't have a driver's license. That's crazy. It's a real roller coaster of emotions. So then, you know, our opinions start to change a little bit about Troy because we find out more about his past. He had a very troubled childhood, very rocky relationship with his own father. That story he told about the dad finding him with that girl was just, like, very disturbing. And then when he had his first son, he was robbing people to support his family. Not cool what he was doing, but we see, again, he feels responsible for taking care of everybody. We find out that he murdered someone, and he served 15 years in prison. That was where he met his friend Bono, not from U2. He didn't get to see his first son grow up because he was in jail at that time. Speaking of his son, he had a very rocky relationship with his two sons. We saw he was very reluctant to lend the $10 to his oldest son, Lyons, who was, like, in his 30s, I want to say, at the time. He did eventually give him the money because of Rose. Thanks, Rose. We can see that he's being really hard on his son because he wants him to work harder and to get that money for himself. But at the same time, like, you can tell there's definitely some strain there between the two of them. He doesn't respect that his son wants to be a musician. He doesn't even accept the invitation to go see him play multiple times. He wants to see his son get a real job. Then he freaking squashes his other son, Corey's dream of being a football player. He's got a college that wants to recruit him, and he's just like, no, I'm not signing those papers. Damn! He was like, there was no wiggle room there. It was not gonna happen. It felt so bad for Corey. And again, Rose is like, let him play. Just freaking let him play. And we see that Troy does not want his son to end up in the same situation as him. He wants a better life for him because he was an athlete himself and it didn't work out. But then Corey stands up to him and he's just like, are you sure it's not just because you're jealous that I'd be more successful than you? So we see a juxtaposition between the first son, Lyons, and the second son, Corey. Corey is much more willing to stand up against his father. There were multiple very, very painful conversations that we saw between Corey and Troy. Especially when Corey was like, why don't you like me? Ah! That was crazy. That was a lot. I think that conversation really showed that Troy is, like, hell-bent on providing for his family. But he's missing the point, I think, because he thinks that, you know, providing food and a house for his family is showing them love, but he's neglecting the caring part, you know what I mean? He's very cold with them. And then you've got Rose Maxon, who is played by Viola Davis. This was an outstanding, amazing, awesome performance from Viola. This character is always trying to stand by her husband, but then, you know what, she's not afraid to call him on his BS when he's telling those ridiculous stories. Those ridiculous stories really make you question how trustworthy Troy is. But Rose is really trying to support those children emotionally. She can see that they're not getting that from their father. So she's telling Corey, like, you should be playing football. She's giving the $10 to Lions. Troy really puts her through a lot of shit. And then she finally explodes, rightfully so, when Troy tells her that he's been cheating on her and that he freaking got his mistress pregnant. Holy shit, my jaw hit the ground when that happened. And then that argument that they had in the backyard about sacrifice was nuts. Viola had snot flying everywhere. It was crazy. I mean, the snots aside, her delivery of that monologue about how much she had to sacrifice and how she's been standing next to him this whole time was so powerful, so worthy. She better freaking get that Oscar this time because she deserved it a long time ago. And then the freaking nerve when Troy said that he was going to continue to see his mistress after that. I can't believe that she did not kick his ass out in that moment, but I guess, you know what? She wasn't really in a position to do that. That's not really something that was done in the 50s, so that's really, really heartbreaking. But then it was so badass of her when she agreed to raise this innocent child, Troy's daughter, after her mother passed away. But then she told Troy, like, this girl is not going to be motherless, but I am no longer your woman. Oh man, that was crazy. So it took all of that to get him to finally finish building the fence for her in the backyard. So I want to skip ahead to the ending. Troy dies. Spoiler alert. You know, I warned you guys. I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that that was a cop-out, or do you think that was appropriate, that they killed off his character? Let me know. I was kind of hoping that we'd see a little bit of his interaction with his daughter Raynell as his wife raised her, but we didn't get to see that. It was a really powerful scene when the whole family gathered together when they were getting ready for Troy's funeral. Corey comes back, we find out that he joined the Marines, and he's really, you know, making a life for himself. So I want to know, do you think that Corey is like his father? Because that's what Rose was claiming when they had that standoff when he was like, I'm not going to the funeral, and she was like, bitch, yeah you are. Again, you can really see that juxtaposition between Corey and Lyons, because Lyons is in trouble. He got caught like cashing other people's checks. He's got to go to the workhouse, and Corey is a Marine now. So then I'm conflicted on this last part. Uncle Gabe asks St. Peter to open up the pearly gates for his brother to go to heaven, which I thought was really sweet. And it was sweet how he was trying to play that trumpet that he was carrying around the whole movie, and then we see like, oh, he cannot play, and he's just like blowing air through it, nothing's happening. Then all of a sudden you hear that one note come out of the trumpet and the sun starts shining down on them. Now, I thought it was beautiful visually and everything, but I just don't know if it made sense. Would it make sense for Troy to like go to heaven and have this like beautiful sun shining moment? Like, yeah, he was really working to provide for his family and everything, but he did some really shitty stuff. So it's like hard to judge that. But just to wrap things up, I did enjoy this movie. I did feel a little bit drained after, but in a good way. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, much love.